Shabbat Shalom. So in anticipation for today, I looked up Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker and his staff, and I was trying to find just an email address for one of his staffers. And when I kind of saw all of the different emails that I've gotten from Senator Booker's office, I realized actually I'm on a list of Jewish leaders in New Jersey, and I realized just how much Senator Booker has actually done for the Jewish community in New Jersey. I went through and I kind of had that feeling that you get when you're at the Passover Seder, when you hear that word Dayenu, right? If only we had been freed from Egypt, Dayenu. If only we'd gotten manna, Dayenu. If only we had gotten the Torah, Dayenu. And as I went through each press release of one particular bill after another that Senator Booker had voted for or co-sponsored or even sponsored himself, I realized that he's a gift to our state and a gift to the Jewish people. And so it's so comforting to have him here. He leaned over to me a little while ago and he said to me, so are you going to give a Devar Torah? Are you going to give a sermon? And I said, you know, we have a lot going on tonight. You're the sermon tonight. And there's not so many politicians that I think I could say with like true integrity that them speaking is itself the sermon. But as someone who publicly speaks for a living, as someone who crafts words, as someone who seeks to inspire through those words, I find that every time that I've watched Senator Booker, every time he opens his mouth, there is something almost religiously significant to his words, even if he's talking dry policy. There's something visionary, prophetic about his words, even if it has nothing to do with visions for the future. And so tonight, I hope that you see that there's Torah in many forms. And Senator Booker brings with him deep, deep Torah. It's my pleasure to invite him to the Bima.
Good Shabbos, everyone. You know, my staff always tells me what I'm doing, and they said that you're coming and you get 2 minutes to speak. And now I realize that there's Jewish 2 minutes, and because the rabbi has told me that I'm doing the Devar Torah. So let me just say, first and foremost, to Rabbi Katz, I know a lot about leadership. I've been studying it all my life. And leaders, often you don't know what the times will call from you. And this has been a very trying week, but I feel the sense of gratitude, Baruch Hashem, that the leader of this community during a time of trial was such an extraordinary man. So thank you, Rabbi. To your cantor, I was born to be a cantor except for two things. One, I'm not Jewish. Two, I can't sing. But I feel the music tonight was so meaningful, and the cantor spirit lifted me in a time that I needed that as well. So I want to thank you. And of course, I have to acknowledge the politician, Josh Katz. I tried my best to be a president. I failed in my presidential run. This week I had a lot of time with our country's president. I was in Air Force One, Marine One. Last night I was in the Oval Office, and I've concluded without any reservation that it is far harder to be a president of a shul than of the United States of America. Forgive me, this might be my last invitation. I have been here before, and some of you may remember. This may be my last invitation because this is not necessarily a fully kosher story, but there's a powerful story about FDR and Churchill that Doris Kearns Goodwin tells. And it was 1944, and these two men had grown to be very, very close. And Churchill would come and stay at the White House for days and days, and the two men really had bonded. There was a real closeness between them born from this trial. And they had this vision in 44 that one day there would be an association of nations that would help to preserve peace in the land. And they had talked about it the night before, this association of nations, this organization of nations. But that morning, FDR wakes up and has the name. He's so excited that he thought of this name. And indeed, a year later in 45 in San Francisco, they would form this organization under the name he thought. He got up with a bolt of inspiration. He said it should be called the United Nations. And he has himself wheeled into the room in which Churchill was staying. No knock, no nothing. These were close friends. He wheels in, and there is Churchill standing up from the bathtub, wearing nothing but the water still dripping from his body. And FDR realizes what he's done and he says, excuse me. He turns around, wheel me out. I'll come back in a few moments. And Churchill stands proudly and says, no, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has nothing to hide from the President of the United States. I want you all to know that your junior senator has nothing to hide from this community. I'm here, and I want to be very transparent. I'm here, one, because I have this incredible privilege beyond the dreams of my life to be your senator. And that comes with responsibility and obligation. And I'm here because of that, in the capacity that you all have afforded me. And it is an awakening when you go from being a mayor to a United States senator. I confess that when it came to threats, I was a mayor. I was concerned about public safety and police. And my understanding of international relations extended perhaps to parking at the International House of Pancakes. But as your senator, I'm exposed to a lot of classified information. I bring none of it home. I promise you that. But I learn about the threats to our nation. And when we get our reports about threats, it's foreign and domestic. We see a threat matrix. We often go into what's called a SCIF, this basement place, and you read documents, you get presentations. And the time I've been a senator, almost 10 years, it's been difficult. We are a nation that has seen, especially in the last 5 years, a considerable rise in domestic terrorism and hate crimes. And I have had this job where I've had to, by the confidence you all put in me, to try to find a way to meet these threats. I just wrote a bill with my senior senator and shepherded it through the Judiciary Committee, upon which I am, fought to get it on the floor, battled back and forth, but put a bipartisan compromise to protect our federal judges, because in New Jersey, we had Judge Salas, someone stalked her, went to her house, killed her child, and shot her husband. And so much of my work is to protect our communities, and so much of my stress is seeing the threat matrix, and so much of my distress is to see that we are living in times where it is getting more dangerous just to be who you are. Threats against Muslim Americans are up. Threats against Sikh Americans are up. Threats and violence against Black Americans are up. Threats against Asian Americans are up. But the number one religious group in our state that has seen the highest increase of hate crimes is the Jewish community. And so I work. Senator Menendez and I have brought a lot more money home to do things I don't want to do. But we have to protect our Jewish institutions. We respond. Met in a synagogue recently, further south from here, to talk about the resources we have made available, millions and millions of dollars, and we still know we need to get more to help harden our security, and it hurts to have to go through those exercises. I had a meeting down at Rutgers campus with their incredible Jewish fraternity because they had a hate crime directed at them. I am spending a lot of my time as your representative trying to meet the crisis of our time. And so today I come with a sense of gratitude to this community. I heard the news and called and left a message on the rabbi's phone and called the mayor of the town and knew that there's only one place I could be tonight, and it's here. But I walk in that door, and in wonderful Jewish fashion, I'm greeted with stories of what happened last night. But I tell you that I come here with great transparency because I am not just here because I'm your United States Senator. I'm here for a different reason, and an additional reason that's different. When I got elected to the United States Senate, I was amazed that my ethnicity was very little talked about. People say, yeah, he's a black guy, whatever, let's get to the best person. And I won this office to become America's fourth ever popularly elected black person in the United States Senate. When I got there, the institution had seen so few black people that I still remember I walk in and the person who works in the area just walks up to me and starts crying and shaking to see a black person. Obama had already left, and there was, I was the only one in the Democratic caucus. But what they don't know is they made history, because this is the first time in American history that a black guy with an honorary degree from Yeshiva University has served. I'm the first one. I am the first one. I'm the first big black guy who has the president of a Chabad house. That is true. Because back when I was about 23 years old, I thought I was going to have a date, and I stumble into a Chabad house on Simchas Torah. And I open the door, and it looks like, to me, the only cultural illusion I had was a movie my mom had brought me to see, Yentl. There were black hats and beards and terrible tailors because there were strings hanging out of the pockets. And I still remember, it's almost like everybody stopped singing and dancing and looked at me, and I thought I could read everybody's mind. I projected that they were all thinking, what is this large black man doing here? And funny enough, I was thinking the same thing. What is this large black man doing here? And I turned to leave, and I was stopped by a very frum-looking woman, even though I didn't know what that word meant at the time, who says to me, are you Cory Booker? And I go, yes. And they go, well, the young woman you were supposed to meet here couldn't make it tonight. I was stood up at a Chabad house. This is a Woody Allen movie now. And I need to leave out of here. I'm sorry, I'm an open, pluralistic liberal guy, but I did not want to hang out on Friday night here. I had just been stood up, I wanted to go home, and she asked me to join them, and I sit down, didn't have an excuse, next to the rabbi, and before you knew it, he and I were talking and having a great time, and by the end of the night, I'm dancing with the Torah. And I go back, and we talk about policy and this and that, and we agree at that point in my life, something that changed my life, that we would exchange books, because to have love, you must have knowledge. And we realized we knew so little of each other's culture, and so we said, we have no obligation, but we'll exchange books. If we read the books, we'll come back and exchange again. And so we each gave each other books from our own culture. I gave him Malcolm X's autobiography, and he gave me, I'm a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford, had never read something by this author. He gave me Night by Elie Wiesel. Next thing you know, I'm reading Soloveitchik, I'm reading books about Maimonides, and then he asked me if I want to start studying Torah, and I say yes. And then on Shabbat, Friday nights, I start bringing friends of mine to Shabbat, Jewish friends of mine who'd never even lit a Shabbat candle, Muslim friends of mine, I'm bringing Christian friends of mine, and it becomes such a big hangout on Friday nights. What that song sung during the high holidays, Ki beiti beit tefillah l'chocho mi, may my house be a house of prayer for many nations. It's what last night was about. This house being a house of prayer for many nations. I come here because I'm your senator, but I also come here because 30 years have passed since I was stood up at a Chabad house. I mean, I've been stood up many times since then, but since I was stood up at a Chabad house, and I've continued. I got to Yale for law school, and I missed that. There was something missing. I missed Shabbat. And so I started a club at Yale called the Yale Chai Society, 5 guys around a Shabbat table. Now, literally, there's thousands of members. We have a huge house at Yale. we called it the Eliezer. Now it's the Shabtai house because, again, in the fashion of good Jewish organization, we named it after the guy that gave us the most money. And this house resonates with the highest ideals of humanity evidenced in the Jewish faith. And so tonight, I'm here as your senator, but allow me to be completely naked before you in a spiritual sense. I'm here because for 30 years, I've studied Judaism. During the pandemic, one of my friends said, we should do this, see if we can get a streak, not miss a week. It's been now a few years. This Friday morning, sometimes we're on the run, I'm driving into New York on my cell phone and FaceTime with a Chabad rabbi in Pennsylvania. Chabad is like another great New Jersey organization. Once you get in, you can never get out. With a Chabad rabbi in Pennsylvania and a nice Jewish boy from the Upper East Side, and we're studying this week's Torah portion. So when your rabbi leans over to me and I ask him, who's giving the Devar Torah? He says, you're giving the Devar Torah. And I'm like, I'm ready. I studied this morning. And so here goes. Beshalach. This is actually, I have like my top 5 favorite Torah portions. And this happens to be, the day that I'm coming here, has to be one of them because I love this portion. You have the armies of the Egyptians coming at the Jewish people. Their back is against the Dead Sea. Moses cries out for help, and God doesn't say, I'll help you. No, he says, what are you crying to me for? The power is in your hands. And I love this. There's a guy, Nachshon, that said that he didn't wait. He has faith. He starts marching into the water. They say he gets up to his knees and to his hips and to his chest. Nachshon keeps going until the water is at his nose, and then he is under the water. And at the second that he is surrounded by the darkness, by the cold, that is the moment that the seas parted. And you all sang the song tonight. It so moved me. I'm here because I'm your senator, but I'm here because of that kind of faith. I'm here because my parents told me stories about Jewish faith far before I walked into a Chabad house. I'm here because my parents told me Jews were people that believed so much in their faith that they lived it. I'm here because my parents taught me about the freedom rides that had blacks and whites, Christians and Jews. I'm here because my parents taught me the names of Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, who gave their lives. I'm here because of the guy who had the worst speaking order in all of American history. He spoke right before Martin Luther King on the March on Washington, but a New Jersey rabbi, a Newark rabbi, Yocham Prince. And he said powerfully that I was the rabbi in Berlin under the Nazis, and I realized there that the most urgent problem is not bigotry and hate. The most urgent problem, the most terrible problem, is silence. I'm here because the guy that spoke after him famously said, in the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. I'm here because as a 24-year-old, the first time I went to Israel, I visited a place called Yad Vashem and looked up and I saw these words written in stone. They came for the socialists. I said nothing because I was not a socialist. They came for the trade unionists. I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. They came for the Jews. I said nothing because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me. There was no one left. I'm here with a simple message. Judaism is not an insular religion. It is an audacious faith. It says, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, not who, you lose your humanity. It says, what am I? It says the most urgent issue, if not now, when? Speak up now. Speak up now. I'm here to tell you that Nacham, that Torah portion for today, that man of faith that walked into the water in my generation, I tell you, my brothers and sisters, my Jewish brothers and sisters, you do not walk alone. When the waters close in, when the cold and the dark comes, you do not walk alone. We live in a nation that is yearning for the Jewish voice now more than ever. This idea of being a light unto all nations. The Jewish people have been a part of this nation from its founding. And on this Shabbat, of this portion, we have the power to remake our world. We have the power to bring light into the darkness. We have the power. I said it and it was titillating, and I'll end with this because I said it's one of my top 5 Torah portions. Now, this is the radical hip-hop freestyle moment here. I want to end with one of my other top 5 favorite ones because it's resonant with this one. I think we're at a crossroads for our country, and every generation is. Every generation is. The call to hate, the low road, the divisiveness, the turning against each other because of how we look, how we pray, how we vote. The failure to see the humanity, as Martin Buber, a great Jewish thinker, the otherizing of people. We are at a moment, and crying out to God is not the answer. His reply in this Torah portion is in your hands. Well, I have to confess, I believe in that kind of faith, but I don't always live it. My father was dying of Parkinson's, and I thought that we had one last chance to give him the trip of his dreams. And I call my parents up. May you all have this moment where you have the capacity to take your parents on anywhere they want to go. This is the greatest way to show for the young people. One day, you will give your parents such nachas if you say this to them. We will go on any vacation you want to go on. I've got it. Tell me where you want to go. I thought my mom would say, let's take your dad to Hawaii, to a desert island. No, my mom says immediately, without hesitation, I want to go to Israel. And I'm moved because since I got stood up, I know Israel. And so I call the guy I study Torah with every Friday morning. And I say, can you help me? And he plans this incredible trip. Now, I was mayor of the city of Newark, and I was dealing with death threats. So the FBI was warning us. I had to protect myself. I had 24-hour security. And so my staff and the police department says, you should take security to Israel. And I'm like, I don't think the Crips and Bloods are going to follow me to Israel. I'll be okay. And my friend says, don't worry about it. The tour guides that we have are former Mossad special agents. It's like a very Israeli thing, you know. And so my tour guides are now guys that are trained former military, and I feel good. We go, we land, we get picked up. These military guys are very quiet. They get to the King David Motel. We put my parents to bed. I'm ready to go to bed to start a great day in Israel. But they look at me and they go, we will go for a ride. And I look at my friend and I'm like, and he's like, we should go. And I'm like, okay. We get into a Jeep and we're driving out on the highway, and then we go off into the desert, and my cell service goes out as we go into the darkness of the desert. And I'm suddenly very worried. It's like, I should have brought my security. What are they going to do? Is this what they do to the Goyim when they get them out here? like I'm terrified. My faith was gone. And I'm turning to my friend and giving him this look. He's looking at me, I don't know. And they take us up, and suddenly we rise on this hill in the desert, then poof, we see all the lights of the city. And they get out and they say, we want to get to know the mayor of New Jersey better. I'm like, I'm not the mayor of New Jersey, just a small part of the state. But they build this campfire, and it's beautiful. We sit around the campfire, we talk, we sing. songs of joy. Weeping may endure through the night, but joy. And then these guys start looking out at the valley and showing me points in Israel, and they had incredible encyclopedic knowledge, telling me military history, religious history. It's amazing. And then they point in the distance and they say, that's Mount Nebo. And I get chills because, again, I am the only big black guy that knows the Torah portion every week. And I got chills because the Torah portion that week and him pointing out Mount Nebo brought me to one of my top 5 favorite Torah portions. And I say to these men, pull out your Torah and pull out an iPad. It's the modern Israel. Get with it. And they pull out the iPad and I open it up and I say, this Mount Nebo is one of the most important rhetorical devices in one of the greatest modern American speeches ever given. And then I play the speech. In the quiet of the desert, the words rise up, I have been to the mountaintop, and I have looked over, and I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. And then that man predicts his death and ends with saying, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And then I tell these 2 men from Israel and my brother from the United States, the king would go back from that speech in Memphis and go to the Lorraine Motel. He would go to bed. He would wake up the next morning. He would go out onto the balcony and be slain. I just visited that museum that has turned the Lorraine Motel into an incredible shrine to this great man. I'm the senator now, so they do special things. Thank you, New Jersey. They opened up this place and let me walk out on the balcony, and the line of the bullet, you can see it marked in the pavement. My friend that's driving me tonight fell to his knees on that balcony where King was slain. And I turned to the men and described to them what is written right there where Martin Luther King was killed. What is written? Why? Are you surprised that what is written there are the words from the Torah? Why are you surprised that the Jewish people would have an answer to the moment of pain and hurt? That the Jewish people have lived this ideal that hope doesn't flinch. It looks at the wretchedness of the world. Like Rabbi Tafron says, do not grow weary in the grief of the world. Yours is not to finish the work, but yours is neither to abandon it. It is such a Jewish thing to say that true hope is not ignoring the pain and the attacks. True hope is defiantly saying that despair will never have the last word. And so right there, words from the Torah where a Christian minister was slain is the words of Joseph's brothers, who in the desert right before they took him and threw him into a well to die, uttered the words written now at the Lorraine Motel where King was slain. The words are, behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of his dream. We tonight are here. There are attacks, there is hatred, but we are here. And we fill this house with song and joy and words from the most sacred text. And I tell you this, the dream is not dead. The hope has not disappeared. We will, like my ancestors, wade into the water, sing the gospel songs, and proclaim that God isn't finished with us yet. The power is in our hands. We can bring about a miracle for a new and better day. Thank you.